All right. Well, I think that we might get started. So, thank you everyone for joining me tonight for Natural Medicine Week slash month this year. I'd like to firstly thank the ATMS and Annie, who's the CEO, and here with us tonight, for providing these opportunities for natural therapies practitioners. I've actually been an ambassador for Natural Medicine Week for 6 years now, I think. So it's always a great week to get involved in and to get the word out everywhere for natural therapies of all types. So I'm Alice, and I'm a kinesiologist, mind-body medicine therapist, integrative complementary medicine therapist, human design coach now too, which is basically a whole bunch of stuff which pretty much says that my job is to help you understand what your body is telling you. So tonight we're here to talk about natural ways to sleep better with kinesiology. All right. Okay, well, that didn't work. I thought that would work by doing that. All right, so why does sleep matter? So 1/3 of Australians actually have trouble sleeping regularly. And we think that that just means for us that we're going to be tired, might be a bit snappy, doesn't really matter, or catch up on it later. And sometimes we actually believe that we are meant to be in this day and age perpetually tired. And I am here to tell you that is not the case. So you do not need to be perpetually tired. And the other thing with sleep is it actually affects so much stuff. So apart from just, the snappiness and the, mid-afternoon needing coffee or chocolate or that sort of thing, it actually affects your mental health. I know for myself, if I don't get enough sleep, good quality sleep at any particular time, I am cold the next day. And if that persists for any period of time, I'm actually not a very nice person. So it really does affect your mood levels, which we know, which will then eventually affect your mental health. It also affects your immune function. So sleep is part of that parasympathetic nervous system, which is more your rest and digest nervous system. So we know a lot about fight and flight, but we don't always know so much about rest and digest. And that is particularly important for the good function of everything. You need to be able to sleep well in order for everything to reset overnight. And in kinesiology, we focus a lot on Chinese medicine, and there's particular functions for your body that happen overnight in Chinese medicine. So if you're not getting the sleep, there are impacts. And with the rest and digest, if you don't get enough time in that, over time, it does actually affect your immune system because you constantly stay in that sympathetic or fight-flight system, and staying in that chronically does actually really impact your immune system. Energy levels, look, honestly, we know that if we're tired, we don't have a lot of energy. But over time too, you might actually find that your energy declines over time, and to that point where you're really struggling just to get through a day. Productivity and mood, look, I've covered that. Productivity wise, if I think about that, yeah, my brain doesn't work particularly well without sleep. So I'm quite sure that is the same for all of us when we don't sleep well. So causes of sleep issues. These things are fairly well known, I think. So stress and anxiety does affect sleep. We know that. I see quite a few things in clinic in relation to that. So sometimes that's the monkey mind, the worry sort of thing that stops you from going to sleep at night. I see that nervous system thing where people can't get really into that rest and digest thing, and they will wake a lot throughout the night. What else do I see? I see particularly people who wake at 3 a.m. on the dot. And this means something really specific in Chinese medicine if this is you. What this means is, one, if you're angry or stressed or stuck about something and you can't let it go. So in the Chinese medicine clock, between 1 and 3 a.m. is known as liver time, and that's where your liver channel in your body is supposed to flush out and reset ready for the next day. If you are angry, if you are stressed, if you are depressed, if you are stuck, those sorts of emotions will actually tend to affect your sleep between 1 and 3 a.m. Between 3 and 5 a.m. is actually sort of known as lung time in Chinese medicine. So sometimes this can be about specifically grief, but at other times it can be really about not being able to let things go. So that 3 a.m. on the dot, I see it so much, is literally I'm angry about something or stressed and I can't let it go. So what else do I see in terms of stress and anxiety? I think I did say about that not being able to get into that rest and digest parasympathetic system. And what that will look like when people come to see me about sleep is waking a lot, never feeling rested, don't feel like they get into a deep sleep. Sometimes the people who've got the smartwatches, they will come in telling me, even though they think they were asleep, their smartwatch says otherwise, but they also feel tired regardless. Overstimulation. Yes, we all have the devices, don't we? I mean, we're all on one now, right? Who else has got their phone beside them? Who else has got their iPad beside them? So there's all of these sorts of things around us, and they actually affect us on a number of levels. One, they are very good at sucking in our attention, aren't they? It is easy to just get onto doom scrolling. It's easy to get onto, midnight shopping, those sorts of things. So they stimulate us in that way by constantly giving us a source of attention, a source of distraction, a source of entertainment, a source of something other than sleeping, let's be honest. I know years ago when they brought out the blue light filter on the phones and that sort of thing, everyone thought that was going to help with the sleep. To this day, and I've been in clinic for 11 years now, I have never once had a client come into me and say, you know what, since that blue light filter came in, I actually sleep better. So I actually heard something today about a red light filter as well, which is a new version of the blue light filter. So it's actually quite interesting to consider that we're still looking for answers in terms of these filters to help with our sleep and to help with our stress levels and that sort of thing. But maybe it's actually we just need to put the device down, right? So they stop us from going to sleep. And I actually will find too that even without the device being on, they'll interfere with your sleep by being in your room. The reason for that, so the reason for I'll go back to the first thing, which is, being on the devices and that sort of thing. What that actually does is interfere with your melatonin levels. And melatonin is actually particularly important in your body for you to be able to move from sympathetic into parasympathetic mode. And without electricity, which, I'm not particularly willing to give up either, let's be honest, but without electricity, we're actually supposed to rise and retire with the sun. And we do not do that anymore. So, I mean, look at now, what's this, 10 past 7, assuming you're in AEST, and we should all be in bed, and none of us are. So let's add devices to the mix. And all of a sudden we're up at 11:12. I had a client today tell me that she was still awake at 3 o'clock this morning. So we've got this distraction, we've got it affecting our melatonin levels, but then we've also got this issue around EMF levels as well. Now, in my house, I've got an adult and a teenage child. No one in this house is allowed to have their phone in their room overnight because of that distraction piece, but also because of the EMF levels. We do need a break from our devices. We all have alarm clocks, the old school ones that work quite well. And we are the thing that I find particularly is if I ever do have my phone in my room overnight, so if one of my kids is out, for example, even if I don't touch my phone, it still affects my sleep because of that EMF radiation. So that's another thing to really consider. And I never realized that myself until I took my phone out of my room. I did do it for, I don't know, probably earlier on in the piece in phones. They've been around for a while now. But yeah, I really found that taking the phone out of my room really changed how I sleep. And now that I don't have it, it really does affect my sleep. I don't sleep particularly well, but I do have an EMF blocker between me and my phone if it's in my room. So that's definitely something to consider as well. Irregular routines. We have a thing called a circadian rhythm, if you haven't heard of it. And like I was saying before, our circadian rhythm naturally should be rise and retire with the sun, but that's not how it works in modern society. So, but we still need to work within the clock as much as we can, and with the sun as much as we can. There are actually some studies that do suggest people that work night shift actually live shorter lives. So I really recommend that you get yourself into a good regular routine. And actually, there's a really cool Mel Robbins podcast for anyone who listens to Mel Robbins and or podcasts recently that talks about the concept of, if you want to get yourself, say, 6 or 7 or 8's good, hours of sleep a night, you actually need to spend 9 hours in bed. So if that looks like you getting up at, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning, you need to be in bed at 9 o'clock at night if you want 8 hours sleep. So, and then the second part of these routine things is, because we are creatures of habit, most of us do the same things the same way most of the time. We are creatures of habit in terms of liking predictability, and this really applies to our sleep, right? So if you're going to bed at 10 o'clock tonight, 2 o'clock tomorrow, I don't know, 7 o'clock the day after, your body has no idea what's going on. And that can actually make it even harder for you to go to sleep. The other thing to consider too is, I'm assuming most of us work, have children, some type of commitment, and that's often quite regular. So if you think about that, work is, to be stereotypical, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And it's a regular routine. You know how it works for you. You've got to get up at this time. You've got to have breakfast. You've got to get yourself on your way to work, those sorts of things. The same thing applies to your sleep as well. So perhaps applying the work principle to your sleep might actually be the answer for you. The other thing, emotional blockages and unresolved tension, those things really do come back to what I was talking about with stress and anxiety, right? Other things that can come up, I suppose, with the emotional blockages, not necessarily angry and stuck and depressed, or, you know, worried and anxious or that sort of thing. Even sadness. Sadness can do either way to your sleep, make you sleep too much or make you sleep not enough. If you even look at babies, for example, when babies are particularly distressed, say it's teething time, their sleep often gets disturbed. So if you think about that particular process in an adult, if you've got something fairly significant going on in your life, you can expect that it's going to affect your sleep. The other thing too, unresolved tension, again, that wires your nervous system as well. So if you have pain, if you have muscle tightness, soreness, back issues, even emotional tension, you're going to see all that stuff in your sleep. And I'm sure that everyone here can relate to something on this page in relation to seeing the issue with their sleep. Okay, I clicked the wrong thing again. Let's try that. All right, so what is kinesiology and how does it help? So kinesiology is, as I talked about before, it's about using the concepts and the wisdom of Chinese medicine and combining that with what we know in Western medicine and also with physiology as well. And the way that we use kinesiology, which is the science of muscle movement, is actually through what we call muscle testing or muscle monitoring. So what we do is apply just a little bit of pressure to your arm, and it actually triggers a feedback loop in your body to tell us whether something is stressful or not. So when we see that something is stressful, we'll see your arm sort of, give way a bit, I suppose. And when it's not, it's not a problem at all. So what we do is actually use this as an indicator to find out what's going on in your body. So kinesiology is the system of decoding your body's messages, and your body is always giving you messages, and it's our job to help you understand what those messages are. Those messages can be on a physical level, they can be on an emotional level, a mental level, or even an energetic or spiritual level. And kinesiology looks at all of those at once. So, how do we use it to support sleep better? So the job is to find those blocks, to find those stresses, those imbalances, etc., that disrupt your natural sleep cycles. So we might ask the questions then about, do we have stuff going on with the nervous system? Do we have some emotional blocks like anger or frustration, worry, anxiety, those sorts of things? Do we have sometimes, actually, one thing that I didn't mention before, which is interesting, is, do we have issues around our food choices and that sort of thing, and also vitamins and minerals and that sort of thing? I know for myself, I've got this really cool supplement, magnesium supplement. PS, magnesium is amazing for sleep, but it has B vitamins in it as well. And I know for me, if I drink B vitamins in the afternoon, I will not be sleeping at night. So we can be asking the body about those sorts of questions if you're not aware of it. We can be asking about energetic imbalances, any blocks there. So any imbalances in chakras or your aura or things like that. And then we also look at the meridians, or the channels in the body, which the acupuncturists use, and see if there is any blocks in any of the meridians, and then even down to very specific acupressure points, because each acupressure point actually has its own signs and symptoms and interesting information. So if we find that we've got any particular stress in, say, well, I'll just pick this acupressure point, that particular one is really about emotional regulation. So, okay, your body's telling me that we've got some stress here about emotional regulation. How does that relate to your sleep? And so we keep asking those questions and trying to decode what your body wants to tell us about what the block with sleep is. That will work even if you're trying to consciously not tell us, by the way. So the second part, once we find out what's going on, the second part is actually to then ask the body through the same ways how we're going to solve this problem. And particularly, how I was talking about the nervous system, what we're looking to do very much is to release that tension from the nervous system so that we can switch from sympathetic into parasympathetic in order to be able to sleep. And also then releasing any tension that we have from the energy systems, so chakras and auras and sort of energetic work. And then also with the meridians as well, those channels that I was talking about. We look to see if there is, when we find a block, say in an acupressure point, then we look to see what we can do to release that block in the acupressure point. That could be anything from hanging onto the point, just holding it until we feel a pulse. That could be doing some sound or energy or aromatherapy or all sorts of different things, moving the actual muscles, rubbing key neurolymphatic or neurovascular points on the body. It's just all different parts of the body that we look at in order to be able to move the block in relation to why you're having trouble sleeping. And also providing calm and relaxation, restoration, whichever you would like to call it, because obviously if you feel calm and relaxed, you're going to sleep better. Yeah. So I find a lot of the time it's the sum of the parts, right? If I think about the last person possibly that I saw who had some sleep issues this week, they didn't have organized sleep patterns. They weren't eating particularly well. And also the other thing with eating is if you eat too close to the time that you go to bed, that actually interrupts your melatonin as well, which will help keep you awake. So once you need your melatonin to kick in well in order for you to be able to sleep properly. So they had, disordered sleeping pattern, like what time they would go to bed. They had disordered eating patterns, a fair amount of stress, and probably a bit of a challenge with self-worth. And that's all the things that we look at within a session in kinesiology. So we look at the emotional, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, even sleep hygiene patterns. That's probably something that I didn't talk about before. So not only just being in bed enough time to get some good quality sleep, but what your sleep pattern looks like. Even if you don't have devices in your room, are you watching TV until the very second before you go to bed, and then rush up, brush your teeth, wash your face, whatever else it is you do, jump into bed and expect to go to sleep? That might not work for you. Maybe it is about having a nice cup of calming tea. Chamomile tea is great. Not my favorite. I do prefer it with blend, but chamomile tea is great. Do I read a bit before I go to bed? Do I do some meditation? Do I do some other practices, maybe a bath or a shower or something like that, so that you can create this beautiful cycle in order to be able to go to sleep and get well rested as well, rather than just, run and dive into bed and hope that works. Right. So why does stress affect your sleep? So I've talked a lot about the melatonin production disruption, but also chronic stress elevates your cortisol. Now, cortisol in short bursts is actually very helpful for you. If you think about, I always go back to being chased by very large animals in caveman days. So cortisol is particularly helpful to help you at that time to run away from the thing trying to eat you. We don't have that problem particularly these days. Maybe zookeepers do, but as a general rule, we don't. And so we don't have that burst of cortisol and drop off and return to normal. We tend to have cortisol running through all the time. So the more stressed you get, the more cortisol you have happening. The more cortisol you have happening, the more your body thinks you're in some state of distress. And then you will stay in what we call that fight-flight system, which is that sympathetic nervous system, which will keep you awake. So the stresses these days, they're usually emotional, they're usually mental, they're not usually, something literally trying to eat you. So, and the brain can't tell the difference between physical and emotional stress, just like it can't tell the difference between physical and emotional pain. So there's no end. If you think about, again, the lion trying to eat you, there's no end to that. So once the lion stops chasing you, or you escape from it, then your stress pattern stops. But if the lion is emotional and it never stops chasing you, your stress pattern never stops, right? So muscle tension, if you think about all your muscles being tight and trying to sleep, and actually another sign of that, if you've got a tight jaw, if you wake up clenching your teeth, if you're wearing your teeth down or all that sort of thing, that is a really good sign that you do have muscle tension and or emotional stress. And the hyperactivity of the mind. We talk a lot about the monkey mind. We know a lot about the constant ticking, the constant worry, the constant thoughts, the constant everything. So we use the kinesiology then to actually help find and clear the stress at the root cause of the problem. And like I was saying before, emotionally, energetically, and physically. So an example of that might be if someone comes to me, I can't sleep particularly well, I'm grinding my teeth, I've got headaches, I might have some period pain. I've got pain down the sides of my body. My muscles are always tight. My first question to them is going to be, what are you stressed or defensive about? The jaw thing actually gives me the defensive clue, by the way. So, and then they might say, well, it's family stuff. Maybe there's some work stuff. I don't feel like I'm seen very much. And then through muscle testing and asking questions, because my job is to connect what the mind and the body are telling you so that these two things get on the same page, I'll usually find in that type of pattern, for example, that they feel like they're not valued or respected. And so when we start to work on that particular stress around value or respect, then we find that the sleep pattern usually, because the body goes, you heard me. And that's all your body wants, right? It just wants you to hear and understand it. So, and then it goes, okay, now I can relax and now I can sleep. So that is how we use the kinesiology to find out by digging deeper and deeper and deeper into the layers, finding out what's going on in terms of your sleep and what's getting in the way and what your body wants to actually solve the problem. And your body will very much relax once it actually feels heard. Okay, so a little bit more about how we use kinesiology. So like I said, we use the muscle monitoring. Meridian balancing, which is holding acupressure points or using oils or various different things. And actually don't know why I put those 2 points separately, because meridian balancing and acupressure points are often the same thing. Emotional stress diffusion. The thing with stress is that it isn't actually the stress that's the problem. The thing is, it's actually your response to the stress, your body's response, your emotional response. And the other thing that we do a lot is actually use some breath work and also things like felt sense and focusing and visualization. So like I was saying, the brain can't tell the difference between physical and emotional pain. It actually struggles to tell the difference between what's actually 3D real and not as well. So we can actually use visualization to help shift the stress. Because again, the idea is to decode the messages, shift the stress, solve the problem. Okay, what I thought we might do is actually, I'm just going to show you a few acupressure points. And with these points here, we've got this listed here, and we're going to put this video up online as well, so you can refer back to it. I mean, take a screenshot or a picture now if you want to, write them down, whatever works for you. But I thought that we might actually just show a few acupressure points that you guys can use to take away tonight to be able to help yourself sleep better. And so the first point is called the yin tang, which is basically the third eye. And it's just basically here. Now, when we hold an acupressure point, we either want to use our thumb or two fingers together for what we call polarity, which is basically that we don't give something a positive or negative charge. So in Chinese medicine, your thumb has no polarity, but each of your other fingers do. So we just use two fingers together. So holding an acupressure point, we just apply pressure. You don't have to push in and, that sort of thing. And we can hold the point for a minute or two, and that usually has somewhat of an effect. You can rub around if you want to. Acupressure points are like a funnel. So when you go to see an acupuncturist, they use a needle, which we know, but they have to be accurate to within, I think it's within half a millimeter or a millimeter. I'm not quite sure about that. But on the skin where an acupressure point starts, it's like we've got the funnel. So we don't need the needle going in here, but we've got all this surface area here to play with. So if you're not quite sure you're in the right spot, because this point is pretty much between your eyebrows, you can just give yourself a little bit of a rub. And so this particular point is actually very helpful for calming the mind. So if you've got that racing mind, And this will be a little bit different to when I come down to ESR, just by the way. If you find that you've got the racing mind, lots of thoughts, lots of stuff, not necessarily emotional stress, this is a really good point to use. So conveniently being on your face when you're lying back on your bed, you can actually just rest like this, and quite often you'll end up going to sleep. Another point that we've got, which is called peaceful sleep, and Mian, is actually behind your ear. Let's see if you can see it with me. So basically you've got the mastoid, which is this bone behind your ear. And as you follow that down, you sort of end up in a bit of a ditch there. And that particular point there, that can be a little bit bruisey sometimes. And don't worry if acupressure points feel a bit bruisey, just means that the chi or the energy is stuck in that acupressure point. So this one too is actually quite a good, it's just known as a sleep point because it's called peaceful sleep. So again, we can use that and give that a bit of a rub. Now, when an acupressure point is not in the center of the body, it actually occurs on both sides of the body. You don't have to use both. You can use one, use the other, or use both. It really doesn't matter one way or the other. So that particular one, again, is just following that mastoid bone down until you fall into a ditch. Now, part 7. I love this point. I think I was talking before about the emotional balance, emotional regulation point. And this one is particularly on your wrist. Now, this point is really helpful, as is the yin tang, for calming things down. Actually, all of them except the sleep point are actually good during the day too. So these are points you can also use if you're feeling a little stressed at work or what have you, or a little bit worked up and needing a bit of. So this Shen Men or Heart 7 point is basically on the side of your hand. As you run down your wrist, you'll feel here, right on the where your wrist bends, you'll actually feel like the bone and then a tendon, and the pressure point actually sits right between those. With the heart channel, there's a few acupressure points here. So the other thing that you can do, which just gives you a little bit of a boost too, is put your thumb long ways there, and you'll actually hit a couple of pressure points and help yourself that way. And so you can give that one a little bit of a rub. Now, the emotional stress release point, I love these. I never remember what they're called in Chinese medicine, but the reason I love them is either you or your parents have done this, oh my God, when they're stressed. And the funny thing with that is you're actually trying to help yourself and you don't even realize it. So the emotional stress release points themselves are actually in the middle of your eyebrows and about 1/3 of the way up your forehead. So the other thing is that when you're doing this, you're still actually activating those pressure points. So you can actually just do this to help. Now, these particular points are very helpful when you're obviously emotionally stressed. So if you find that you're worrying about something, you're ruminating on something, you can't let something go, or honestly, you're really annoyed about something, these work particularly well. Now, the other reason these work particularly well is because emotional stress triggers cortisol. Cortisol triggers your fight-flight system, and your fight-flight system actually shuts down your thinking and reasoning. So what these points do is actually help to get your thinking and reasoning brain moving and to actually help you to work through a problem. So it doesn't mean that you're going to lie there thinking about the ways through something for the rest of the night. But what it does mean is that it just gets your brain working so that it can move through it. And then often once you've had a sleep, answers come. I don't know if you've ever noticed that before, but often the answers come overnight. So that's a really good set of points for people for pretty much everything. I do use them a lot in clinic, I have to say. Now, the last point is the heart 8 point. And the way that we find that is we make a fist and then bring your other 3 fingers up, and where your little finger hits your hand is pretty much where the point is. The other way to find it is you've got your knuckle there, and if you follow that diagonally, you end up in a ditch. Kind of like, behind your ear, you end up in this little ditch. A lot of points are in ditches. And this particular point is on both hands, like because it's on either side of the body. This particular point I really do find is actually quite helpful for sleep, and during the day is particularly helpful for calm. It's actually something I teach kids a lot to do at school when they're feeling a little stressed or anxious, because it just looks like you're massaging your hand. It is on the inside. It doesn't matter if you're doing this rubbing it on both sides, as long as you're actually massaging on the inside of your hand. So they're all really great takeaway points that you can use tonight to help you with sleep. Okay, breathing. Now, I've put in 2 different types of breathing exercises here. Now, the reason breathwork exercises pretty much work is, again, coming back to this fight-flight system. If you think about, again, running away from the lion, we tend to breathe shallow, we breathe fast, and it's very stressful. What it does is send a signal to your brain that something is wrong. Now, most breathwork exercises pretty much encourage you to breathe deeper, and that is the point, because then if you're breathing right down into your belly, you're sending a signal to your brain that everything is okay. Now, 4-7-8 breathing is actually particularly helpful for being able to relax so that you can go to sleep. And like I've written here, we breathe in for 4, in 2, 3, 4. I'm obviously not doing this because I can't talk and do it at the same time. Then you hold for 7, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then breathe out for 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you keep doing that type of breathing for 3 or 4 rounds. But I do find that some people don't particularly like it. They sometimes will say that it makes them feel a little lightheaded. Now, if it does that, that's okay. It actually means you need more breathwork exercises, and you may need your diaphragm released so that you can breathe more easily. So, but if you don't like that, then the other one is just breathe in for 4 and breathe out for 6. Breathe in for 5, out for 7. I don't really mind, as long as your out breath is longer than your in breath. And again, that's really about just sending that signal to your brain that everything is okay. And it's a funny thing, because we think with people that we know how to breathe because, we do it every day, but we really don't breathe particularly effectively these days. And a lot of that is because we're sitting down a lot, or because we're stressed a lot, or both of those things. And so we're not getting good oxygenated blood into our body, and also not giving our body those signals that everything is okay. Pretty much everything does come down to some type of stressful pattern, let's be honest. So there are many more breathwork exercises that can be used for good quality sleep, but these 2 are particularly helpful and are ones that I teach all the time in clinic. So as you can see with this, kinesiology is not just about the muscle testing. It's actually about, let's find out what's going on, all of the factors that are leading to what's going on. Let's find out what your body would like to solve its problem. And then particularly in my clinic, I do focus very much on what can you take home that you can use today to help yourself each and every day. So straight into my next point, that's convenient, lifestyle shifts. So this stuff is really important. It often is the simple things And look, in a session, in any like kinesiology, naturopathy, acupuncture, massage, whatever, we can do whatever we do to support you during that time. But what you do when you walk out the door is just as important as anything that we do in clinic. So in my case, we open up the way that the body works, help the energy flow, help the chi flow, help you consciously relax, all of that sort of thing. And it's really important after that, in order to get the best benefits out of the work, what you do between sessions. So we've talked about the sleep and wake times, keeping that rhythm fairly consistent wherever possible. And look, I understand that people often don't necessarily have lifestyles that support that, but honestly, it's a very important thing to do the best with what you can in the scope of the way that your life works. Limiting screens after 8 p.m. and keeping them out of the bedroom, again, to stop the stopping of production of melatonin. So probably a better way to say that would be to allow the production of melatonin, wouldn't it? And also keeping them out of the bedroom to get a break from that EMF radiation. It really is an important thing, not just even for sleep, but actually for your health and well-being as well. Grounding practices. I teach people about some grounding practices always, because with people being so stressed and busy, actually, the tree here is a good example. Our energy is kind of like the roots of a tree. And when we're stressed and busy and rushing around and all of that sort of stuff, we don't actually have our energetic roots into the earth. And if you think about that with a tree, if you apply any type of pressure to the tree, like me leaning against it, and the tree's roots are not in the earth, the tree's going to fall over. How often do we feel like that, right? We've just got no grounding and stability. Spending time in nature, super important. How much time do we spend inside? How much time do we spend on devices? How much time do we spend not getting in the sun? And how much time do we spend not enjoying what nature has given us? Walking barefoot, really good. Not my favorite, I have to say, on the dirt and the sticks, but the beach is good. But that's up to you what you enjoy. I obviously like the beach. Herbal teas, we did talk about that in terms of chamomile. Herbal teas that you find soothing and calming, it doesn't have to be chamomile, but what we don't want is caffeine, because caffeine, I'm pretty sure we all know, does actually interfere with your sleep. I don't tend to drink coffee very much, and I would never drink it after 12 o'clock, because for me, it would keep me awake. I know that there are people, and I used to be one of these, that would be able to drink coffee and go straight to bed. In our land, that actually means you have an adrenal issue. So if that is you, I'd suggest you come and see someone like me. Also, magnesium-rich foods. I mean, we know very much about magnesium sprays, magnesium supplements, which are amazing. And also there's magnesium float baths too, also amazing. But you can actually get good quality magnesium out of food as well. So just basically Google and have a look at what sorts of foods contain magnesium. Green leafy vegetables. Look, honestly, most things are solved fairly well by eating more fruits and vegetables and meat, depending on what your particular style of eating is. But pretty much, if we eat closer to nature for most things, we generally do a lot better. And then evening routines, like I was talking about, having a sleep ritual. And actually, I did forget before about journaling. I do quite like journaling a little bit before bed. And stretching. We don't want to be doing marathon running, because again, that increases cortisol. But a bit of a stretch out, because a lot of us are quite sedentary or sitting still these days. And stretching actually does stretch out the meridians in your body, which is why yoga, tai chi, qigong, and those sorts of things are very good. And it gets the energy or the chi flowing through your body. But again, it's really important what you do in terms of helping yourself in lifestyle stuff. That's really important. It's easy to forget. It's easy to miss. It's easy to overlook. It's easy to ignore. And it's usually really contributing to problems for us. And if you find that you get in your blind spots, what I really suggest for people to do is when things are good for you, make a note in your phone, like the notes, I'm assuming all phones have it, but mine does. I have a Samsung, but a notes app, make a list of what actually works for you when things are going well for you, so that when things are starting to wobble or when things are not going particularly well, you've got a list there. Okay. Oh, yes, I was doing journaling. I'm not doing that anymore. I was doing some stretching. I forgot I haven't done that for a while. Oh, yeah, I probably should, like all of us, drink more water. Or, maybe I'm not eating as well as I could. Oh, yes, my device has crept back into my room. Those sorts of things, right? So that's a really, really good tip for people. Make the list when things are good, because then you know what it is that works. And with kinesiology, my job is to help you understand what your body's telling you, and it's your job to remember that. Okay, so I am a professional kinesiologist, and what that means is that I have a diploma level kinesiology qualification, also mind body medicine, and integrative complementary medicine. So someone like me has quite extensive training, honestly. And my job is always, like I said, to help you understand what your body is telling you and finding that root cause of the imbalance. So when we find all the seemingly unconnected things that we don't quite get, often when we analyze that through the lens of Chinese medicine and energy and that sort of thing, there's a core factor there. And then identifying and resolving that is usually what solves whatever is going on for you. I do have quite an interest in emotional stress, fatigue, and sleep wellness, because I actually didn't believe in natural therapies at all many years ago. I actually thought even emotions were just a waste of time. And then through my own personal journey, I actually discovered that, maybe emotions were a bit more useful than I thought. And then this natural therapies thing, oh, wow, that worked for me. It actually helped significantly with my children. It helped significantly with myself. And finding out the root cause through my own journey was the reason that I ended up doing what I'm doing today. And so my business is called Kinesialice. When I was studying kinesiology, one of the girls I was studying with decided it wasn't for her, and she left and she goes, "I'm just not Kinesi Kate." And I went, "Oh, that is gold." So that is why I'm Kinesialice. And my job is about helping you to transform. Because with what we want with anything, it's about, this is not working for me and I want to get there. And my job is to help you get from A to B in relation to mind, body, and soul. Okay, couple of what do you call these things? Testimonials. So, and yeah, sleep-wise, because it's so fundamental to how we function as humans, that is really why I'm particularly passionate about sleep. I will be honest, I'm not someone that's had a huge amount of sleep issues over time. I have experienced them through various stresses and all of that sort of thing. But the people that I see that haven't slept well for 20 years or their whole lives or that sort of thing, seeing them transform from one day to the other, one way to the other, actually really does bring me joy, I have to say. Okay, so let's bring it all together. And then if we've got a bit of time, we can ask some questions if you'd like to. So sleep improvement, it is possible. But we need to find out what your emotional, physical, and energetic imbalances are. We need to get your nervous system sorted out 100%. And that's actually quite fundamental, because what I will say to people is when your nervous system is under stress, we can look at everything else all you like, but when your nervous system is in charge, it kind of goes, cool story, but I don't feel safe. So it's fundamental to sleep that we have a good nervous system that can regulate from sympathetic to parasympathetic. We can, we've talked about, you know, the routines and those sorts of things that help with your natural circadian rhythms, and also the lifestyle factors that you can do or change or bring in or etc. in order to support a good sleep cycle. And then if you can't work out what's going on for you, or if you're needing additional support, that's when you reach out to someone like me. So kinesiology is something that can be done online as well as face-to-face. And given that it is I guess, a body work in that regard by using the muscles, it's as much an energy work as it is a physical work. So online, what we do is I tap into your energy, or I get you to do the work on yourself, basically, by guiding you through that so that, you know, time and distance are not a factor for you. Okay, so if you'd like to continue your journey with me, you can obviously book appointments and discovery calls with me. My discovery calls are free through this QR code, which is huge now that I look at it. I've got a blog on sleep on my website, which is kinesialice.com.au. You can join my newsletter, and you can obviously follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Okay, so who has questions? I can see a few things in the chat. Let's have a look here. I'll deliver in the time and the acupressure points. Thank you, Annie. Okay, who has questions? Feel free to throw them in the chat. Take yourself off mute if you would like to. And definitely don't be afraid to ask questions, guys. No question is silly. No question is, you know, whatever one person is asking, at least 5 other people are thinking it as well. So feel free to ask away. Do you want any more tips? Is there a specific thing that you'd like to know about? Anything that you'd like to challenge even? I'm more than happy to be challenged. Go for gold. Okay, maybe we don't have any questions. All right. Well, if you don't have any questions, then my parting words here are that your body has the wisdom. Just listen to it. And a kinesiologist like me is someone who can actually help you to decode those messages so that you can understand what your body is telling you. One thing that has just occurred to me that I didn't say before, if you have restless legs for sleep, magnesium is your friend. So magnesium sprays even. They are great. So magnesium is your friend if you have restless legs. Okay, well, if you don't have any questions, then I say thank you very much for joining me, and thank you for those lovely comments in the chat. I really do appreciate that. But if you do have any questions at any time, you can always just book in for a discovery call with me and have a chat, or just check out my stuff on socials or on my website, particularly my blog about sleep. So again, thank you very much to Annie and the Australian Traditional Medicine Society. Without the ATMS and natural therapies would be in a really different state. HMS is such good champions of natural therapists like myself, and I encourage you to really follow them on social media and all of the ATMS practitioners, because there's lots and lots of great ones out there. And yeah, I very much appreciate their support of me over 10 years now, Annie. It's 10 years that I've been an ATMS member this year. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me tonight. And I look forward to seeing you again.